Hey, Mike, what are we looking at here? It looks like a bear or Bigfoot or something.
Yeah, it does look like that. Well, this is a photograph that was brought in by a local person, a local resident who had been in the museum before. And this was taken by a friend of his. And this was shot just up the hill from where we recorded our fabulous scream and where we shot our video of the Bigfoot in the apple orchard. So it's in an area where we have known sightings and we have a history of sightings. So, once you've established an area as a possibility, then you see something, your mind tells you, oh, look, there might be a Bigfoot. But if you also notice in the photograph, there's a couple of Rottweilers in the foreground there, a couple of dogs, and they're looking much too casual, I would think, for that to be an animal that close by. I suppose it could be upwind, so they haven't caught its scent and they haven't seen it because of their vantage point. It's a possibility. I was told the dogs are both pretty old and kind of sick. That's a possibility. But I think it's more likely that what you're seeing there is a case of pareidolia, that is, light and dark shapes coming together in such a way to give the impression of something. The human mind has a tendency to want to make sense out of chaos, and so when we look into a mass of light and dark shapes, we start looking for recognizable objects, and making decisions about negative and positive space. And so it's very easy to zoom in on something that for a second takes on a recognizable shape, and then to think you're seeing something that you're not. And I would have to say that's my impression of what's going on here. But of course, I can't completely rule out that might be just what it looks like. It might be a giant ground sloth or a Bigfoot or a grizzly bear or something. I don't know. That's why it's so important that you realize some things about Bigfoot in general. I've stated before that there's three types of Bigfoot. There's the mythical or legendary Bigfoot. That's the one we all can agree exists. That's the one that people see when it's not really there. The legend of Bigfoot. There's also, I think, a flesh and blood Bigfoot, because we're right now waiting for the results of some DNA testing on a tooth, and that's pretty much flesh and blood, about as organic as you can get. And we're waiting for that result. But so we've got a line on that one going. Then there's the paranormal Bigfoot. Now, most people choose to ignore the paranormal aspect of this phenomena because they just don't feel that it's a part of cryptozoology. And I'll acknowledge that. It really isn't. It's more like ufology or Fortean studies. Now, Charles Fort was the man that first documented weird things happening, animals falling out of the sky and things like that, and spontaneous human combustion, just little weird things that can't yet be explained by science. So people who study those sorts of things understand that there are people on the planet today and in the past that claim they came in contact with some kind of beings that we don't really have a name for or a handle on, other than in the realm we consider to be mythical. But I think that it's quite likely, based on the number of witnesses, the number of people who've had these kinds of experiences throughout history, to suggest that there's something going on there, and that somehow people are having experiences that to them represent encounters with beings. They call them in ufology close encounters of the third kind. There are also people in the rubric of UFO studies who claim that they have encountered other sentient life forms that actually had contact with them, that they've had telepathic conversations or channeled conversations with otherworldly or other dimensional or extraterrestrial beings, and I think that someday we're going to get the ability to understand these sorts of things, these kinds of encounters, and we'll get a handle on them. I'm sure they're caused by a lot of different things, but by the same time, when people describe these beings, the most commonly described beings are gray aliens with big black eyes, reptilian-like aliens, dressed in jumpsuits, Nordic-like aliens dressed in jumpsuits as well, robots or robotic aliens. Then there's the big and the small hairy biped aliens. I mean, the ideas for Chewbacca and the Ewoks came right out of anecdotes about hairy bipeds in association with UFOs. So these are claims of encounters that people have made. We in ufology, it's referred to as contacts. So people who claim they've had communication of any kind with another life form are considered to be contactees. So I would say that people under the rubric of Bigfoot studies, there are people who fall into that same area. Kiwani Lapsaritis, for example, I would have to state that he's kind of a Bigfoot contactee. Now, contactees are the ones that the experiences that are the least understood and the ones that the fewest people are willing to accept as real. Most people think that kind of stuff is fantastic, it's out of the question, and that the people who've had these experiences are just making that up. But once again, I think that the Kiwani has had some experiences that to him have convinced him that he's having channel contact, and I'm not about to say he's not. And I don't think anybody else should be taking that step to call all the people who have made these extraordinary claims to infer or to directly call them all fools or liars. So in that way, I want to be a witness advocate even for contactees, because some of them might be just telling the truth.